Hello, I'm the Lore Master. Welcome back to part 4 of the feasting. And part 5 will be out for you soon. A lot of big things are happening, and we're going to at least try to do weekly videos. So stay tuned. And thank you for watching and subscribing and staying with us. For those of you who have not seen part 1, 2, or 3, please go ahead. You do not want to go halfway through a story. Trust me, I know that's kind of bad. But I'm really hopeful you're going to like this. So, in the last episode, they went to the person who had died's family, and the father of the deceased had joined them on their quest. Ezra McBride, and he is quite a character, let me tell you. If you're big into redneck people, you're gonna love him. One of my favorites I created. So, with that, let's go. I'm the Lore Master, and let's begin. It took us a few hours to get our provisions together, and when we went to the old train station where Ezra had a friend named Wolfie McGee, he had an old tram that could go up into the mountains that used to bring miners home. The old tram wasn't in the best of condition, but even though it didn't look like much, he assured us that it could make it. Since we had no other means of transportation, we decided that it was best and our only option to get us there without hoofing it all the way. As we climbed in the old tram car with a lurch, it took off and started up the mountain. I sat next to Ezra. Ezra had a look of sheer determination in his eyes, and I knew he was looking forward to finding the Wendigos. In fact, he was more interested in finding them than we were at this point. I decided I need to talk to him and gather some information, so I asked, "How long have you been working in the mountains?" "All my life. I've been working here in these woods since the day I was a kid. My pappy has been a miner since this region was first settled. He was one of the first miners here. He actually took me to see the place when I was a teenager. This place was owned by Wormwood Coal Company, one of the biggest coal companies in the entire region. Now that was a hard time. They say the mountains shoot up people and spat them out. They said it was a dark and evil place. Even the devil wouldn't waste time in. They called the mountain Houndstooth Mountain, because it points out of the ground like a jagged hound's tooth. It is the tallest mountain in all of Alabama, and the most deadly too. They say working in that mine was like a death sentence, and that man, Grimwood, that was a mean son of a bitch. He was a slave driver, and I know slave drivers. He would run his men into the ground to get the black dirt out of the ground. So some of the people came out of the mine would look bleaker than slaves did. Let me tell you, they said there were at least 10 men that died a day as they worked for him. What happened to the guy? I asked, interested in the story. Now that's the best part of the story. See, the man had started hiring people from out of town. Foreigners, you know. Apparently they worked cheaper than us. And he had a lot of people laid off. Here in Black Hope, my grandpappy was one of them. He was mad as fire. He was madder than a bunch of hornets hit with a wooden stick. So you know what my grandpappy did? Him and his friends, one of them Wolfie's pappy over there, They went up to where he lived in Maple Hill, where all the city folk lived. Now they had to fight their way through the guards protecting that SOB, that mean SOB. But eventually they found him hiding under the bed like a scared little kid. Now that was right before Easter Sunday, and they were talking about having their own parade. They needed someone to be Jesus on the cross. Well, sir, Mr. Grimwood looked like a mighty fine Jesus. They took the cross from the church steeple right next to the old post office, and they led him down Baxter Street, put a gag in his mouth and tied his hands on that old rugged cross. And you know what my grandpappy did next? He had some real nice moonshine, the kind of moonshine that would make you go blind if you didn't know how to make it right. And he hated to waste moonshine. And one thing he hated was wasting one thing he hated more than anything in this world was wasting good liquor. But since it was Easter, he wanted to use it for a special occasion. Now I don't know if Mr. Grimwood was baptized or not, but he got baptized that night with my pappy's moonshine. They lifted him high and proud in the center of Baxter Street. Now Mr. Grimwood had a very fine taste in cigars, from Cuban plantations. They were his pride and joy. Now those things, my pappy said, they were the best cigars he would ever have. So he lit it up and passed it around, all friendly and neighborly like. Let everyone get a nice whiff and smoke of that fine cigar. And they smoked it. When he was done, he threw it on Mr. Grimwood, right at his feet, and boy did he light up like the 4th of July. It was a pretty fire too. It was a pretty white fire too. The guys, all he cared about was coal and mining and money. And you know what my grandpappy said? Asses to asses, dust to dust. And let me tell you something. That was the finest Easter Sunday Black Hope ever experienced. So, was anyone ever arrested for it and go to jail? I asked. No, them police were scared to death to do anything after what happened to Mr. Grimwood. So the rich people don't mess with us anymore. But did he have any family? What happened to them? I asked. That's the funny part of the story. When we busted in that mansion he was living in, turns out he had no wife, but he did have a mistress. Some black maid from Mississippi had a baby with him. Get that? He actually had a kid with the maid. They left and headed up north. They probably still had the money that Mr. Grimwood earned off the backs of our people, living high and mighty up there, somewhere in Rhode Island or somewhere north. No idea what happened to them. Good riddance, I say, explained Ezra. As I listened, I became a little more uncomfortable with the company I had on this mission. But since he had offered to take us up the mountain, I guess I had no choice. We finally reached Lost Cove Mine. The mine was reportedly one of the most haunted mines in all of Alabama, and where this Wendigo was probably hiding. As we entered the area of the old mine, there was a river that ran down the side of the hill, probably the stream that ran through town, but everything there was old and in ruins. The wood was splintered and the nails were rusted, and we got out of the tram car we were riding. We looked around the area, surrounded by pine and steep cliffs, and there was that mine, a big gaping hole that reminded me of the story of Jonah and the big fish that swallowed him. It was dark, it was deep, and it smelled awful. Perfect place for Wendigos to hide. Then we heard a loud stomping sound that shook the ground and hit the tram, and the tram with it. The sound was loud, and it caused the entire ground to vibrate. It felt like the whole mountain was shaking to its very core. Then, from one of the cliffs of the mine, there was a large rock thrown directly towards us. "Run!" I shouted to everyone as we scurried away. The rock hit the tram, breaking it into 1,000 pieces. As we looked where it came from, up on the cliff, there stood a massive Wendigo. Its legs were as tall as full-grown trees, and its arms were long and dangly. Its skin stretched tightly over its bones. Its large, skinny legs ran quickly to the edge of the cliff, and we saw its head. It was the size of a horse-drawn carriage, with black, soulless eyes, the kind of eyes you would see on a doll, hollow and lifeless. On its head were 2 large antlers that looked like they belonged to a deer and were solid white as the first snow of winter. His skin was ashen gray, and we could clearly see its bones and rib cage poking out of the thing. It was as if the thing hadn't eaten in years. Its face had sharp, jagged teeth, with red crimson all over its mouth from a fresh kill. It looked up at us and smiled. "How the heck did it get up there?" Ezra asked, looking up at it. "I think I know," I said, because just then, out of its back, sprawled out, owl wings that flew out like a sail on a large fishing vessel. It looked down at us from its huge height. It had to be at least 20 feet tall, and it smiled at us. I knew that Wendigo had gotten away with not just the mothers in town, but throughout the entire country, judging by the size of it. I had seen some big Wendigos in my time, but this was one of the biggest I had ever seen. I knew that getting into its heart would be one of the most dangerous things I would attempt in my life, and it would be a feat no one else had ever attempted. "How do we fight that thing?" Ezra shouted. "Simple," I said. "The person is still in that Wendigo. When the person gets to that big a size, they create a prison of ice around themselves, functioning as the heart of the creature. We break open its chest and take out the frozen heart. Then we break the ice heart, and the Wendigo person will be inside. Once he is out, we cut out his heart and stab it with this blessed knife. The knife has been passed down by the Creek Indians for generations. Every member of my family has yielded it. Now it's my time. This guy wants to fight? Let's show him how the Grey Fox brothers fight Wendigos and kill monsters. Having an idea? See the legs? Wendigo's autonomy is the same as a human autonomy, meaning he has tendons in his legs. If we slice a human's tendon, he can't stand. So if we cut the Wendigo's tendon, his legs that should be enough to bring him down. We need something to draw his attention while we make for his legs. I'll do it, Ezra said. You 2 boys know how to kill this thing. But I know one thing that I can do to help. It's an old McBride family talent. What is it? Asked James. Making people madder than hell, said Ezra. With that, Ezra ran from his hiding place, out into the open as he put his hands around his mouth to make him louder. Hey, you moose-headed fat ass! You killed my son. Now I'm going to return the favor and kill you. Now, "Wolfie, now!" he shouted. Wolfie ran to the wagons of the tram until he found a shotgun, 2 to be exact. He ran over and loaded it. "I'm gonna show you how we Southern boys deal with your kind. Aim high, boy. Aim for those pretty bras. He can't attack what he can't see," Ezra said, and Wolfie shot their shotguns and shot and hit the Wendigo in the stomach, which made the thing angry, unleashing a roar that could be heard all around Houndstooth Mountain for miles. With them firing at the Wendigo, James and I ran to the cliff as fast as our legs could carry us. We stared at the sheer cliff that separated us from the Wendigo and the boulders he was throwing down. Boom, boom, boom. It sounded like thunder as the boulders hit towards Wolfie and Ezra. Amazingly, they were fast enough to avoid the boulders and kept up with the attack of the Wendigos. James looked at me and said, "That man is either the bravest man that ever lived or the stupidest that ever drew breath in this land." With that, we started climbing, my face pushed against a rock as I climbed. I constantly searched for toe and handholds, but I was making good progress as I climbed up. The sound of the battle echoed around me. The screams from Ezra and Wolfie as they continued to shoot buckshot at the Wendigo, the angry screams coming from the Wendigo. The plan was working perfectly. Once we were done with this thing, we could finally return to Huntsville, and we, the Fox brothers, would be the best Wendigo hunters in the entire South. I could just picture how proud my father would be, knowing that his son took down a 20-foot Wendigo and saved an entire city from a monster. Finally, we reached the Wendigo where the Wendigo was standing. Bill looked at me, and I nodded. This Wendigo was going down. I took the left leg and Bill took the right. We slammed our knives into the heel of the creature, splitting it. We were both baptized in blood in a moment, and we could see the legs give out, and it started to fall forward. The Wendigo lost his footing and fell off the hill, slamming into the ground with a thud on its stomach. The thing let out an ear-piercing scream as it landed with a thud that shook the mountain, and coal dust shot up like smoke, making it hard to see. The dust stung my eyes like a bunch of miniature hornets stinging me. I knew we had to let the dust die before we could make our next move. And with that was part 4. I hope you liked part 1, 2, and 3. Stay tuned for part 5 and the more stories I'm keep going with. And I'm releasing a book sometime next year probably. So if you like my YouTube channel, or if you like my voice, or if you like me in general, please buy it. Every little bit helps to make this YouTube channel better and better. Lore Master out.